Cursed with a crown she never desired, Lady Jane Grey's life was short, but her reign as queen was much shorter. This is the story of the 9 Days Queen, executed on this day in 1554. But how did we get here? Well, in 1547, notorious bastard Henry VIII died from being an awful man. That and multi-organ failure. His son, Edward VI, succeeded him at the grand old age of 9 years old. I bet show and tell that week was wild at school. Today, Teddy has brought in the crown jewels to show us. So the actual ruling of the country was done by confirmed adults, Edward Seymour, and following him, John Dudley. These were the king's protectors, on account of him never reaching maturity. Yes, that's right, poor Edward became terminally ill with tuberculosis at the age of 15 because life was cruel and we didn't understand infection control back then. His sisters Mary and Elizabeth couldn't possibly succeed him because they had been declared illegitimate by their father, Henry, when he was in his weird downward spiral of wooing wives. The country under Edward was Protestant, and it was imperative that Catholic Mary was kept away from the throne at all costs because, goodness me, could you imagine? Edward had written in his device for the succession in favour of Lady Jane Grey. She was the eldest daughter of his cousin, she was a Protestant, and by absolute coincidence, the King's Protector John Dudley had married his son Guildford to Lady Jane Grey quite recently. Edward VI died on the 6th of July 1553, and 3 days later Jane was summoned to Sion House where her father-in-law John lived. She had no idea why. When the 17-year-old girl arrived, alone, she was told that she was now the Queen of England. It came as a total shock to her. She did not receive the news well. She was confused and embarrassed when the Privy Councillors knelt to pledge their allegiance to her. She was in complete distress. She only began to calm down when her husband and her parents arrived. Can you imagine getting that information at 17? I cried getting my AS level results when I was 17, never mind being blindsided with the news that you're now the bloody Queen. So she was taken to the Tower of London on a procession of barges the following day. She wore fine clothes and jewels. She was accompanied by her beautiful husband Guildford to prepare for her coronation. Jane refused to wear the crown. She felt uncomfortable. She said she didn't want to wear it if her husband wasn't also wearing a crown, but she also didn't want to make him king just yet, and this made her mother-in-law furious. It's almost as though they orchestrated a marriage to make their son king, isn't it? But anyway, Jane had a bad feeling about it all. She recalled that she was told that she could take the crown without fear, and that another should also be made to crown my husband, which thing I, for my part, heard truly with a troubled mind and with ill will, even with infinite grief and displeasure of heart. As the actual heir to the throne, Princess Mary was furious with all of these goings on, and she wrote to the Privy Council demanding that she be crowned queen. They responded by asking her to be quiet and obedient, and oh my god, my blood is boiling for her hearing that. Mary had got quite a strong backing for her claim to the throne, so the Privy Council let John Dudley take a small army to capture her. Unfortunately for him, she had a bigger army. It was quite the Crocodile Dundee moment. You call that an army? John decided that actually he didn't even want to capture Mary anyway, so he left for London. Upon hearing about the massive army, the Privy Council changed their tune and decided that actually yes, Mary was queen, all hail our new leader. On the 19th of January 1553, Mary was proclaimed Queen of England, and Lady Jane Grey's palace at the Tower of London became her prison. Jane's mum, dad and her ladies-in-waiting all abandoned her, both physically and emotionally. They proclaimed their support for Mary. Absolute arseholes, right? John Dudley became the scapegoat for all of this, but to be honest, from what I've heard, it does just sound like he was the goat, doesn't it? It seems like he was the one to orchestrate everything. And Jane herself said, "He hath brought me and our stock in most miserable calamity, and misery by his exceeding ambition." He was executed for treason in August 1553. Jane and her husband Guildford were found guilty of treason and sentenced to death in November 1553. Queen Mary did feel bad about all of this though, and it does seem that she recognised that Jane had been used, because she said that her conscience would not permit her to have her cousin put to death. She even offered to spare Jane and Guildford's lives if they would convert to Catholicism, but they both refused. And then Jane's dad was now involved in a plot to overthrow Mary. Can this guy not just stop screwing his daughter over? Good grief. Anyway, this meant that it was far too dangerous to have Jane and Guildford live, so reluctantly Mary agreed to their execution. On the 12th of February 1554, Guildford was taken to the scaffold, followed by Jane. Her last words before the axe fell were, "Lord, into thy hands I commend my spirit." Oh, that's really sad, isn't it? I wonder if she would take any solace in knowing that she broke a world record, though. I hope so. We have to hope that that came from it, right? Anyway, thank you for watching. Why not subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow.